Shalom and Shavua Tov, everybody. I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief. It's where you join me every Monday to Thursday to get your top stories from Israel. And of course, we are brought to you, as always, by Lay of the Land. So let's take a look at those top stories making those main headlines. And we begin with a meeting between our Foreign Minister, Yair Lapid, and a senior Palestinian Authority official who's also a close confidant and ally of Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. In fact, he's even tipped as the man who could possibly replace Abbas. Abbas, of course, is serving his 17th year of his 4-year term, so we're not expecting elections anytime soon. But let's take a look at the meeting. He met with Hussein al-Sheikh. He is the Palestinian Authority official responsible for security and civil organization with the Palestinians. Now, we don't know the details of this particular meeting, but we do know that Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and Defense Minister Benny Gantz were briefed beforehand. Now, this is not the first time one of our top officials has met with officials from the Palestinian Authority. Just last month, our Defense Minister Benny Gantz hosted President Mahmoud Abbas in his home here in Israel, the first time that Abbas has been on Israeli soil in many years. And there have been other high-ranking officials meeting, such as our Minister of the Environment and various other ministers. Now, the world media wouldn't have you believe that any kind of dialogue is happening between Israel and the Palestinians, but it is. It is happening at these very, very high levels, and we are not often privy to the information contained in these meetings, but at least there is some kind of dialogue. On the subject of our foreign ministry, the ministry will debate today what kind of stance or action we'll be taking as the world watches the increasing crisis between Russia and the Ukraine. Israel has traditionally been neutral. We have friendly ties with both countries. In fact, last week we brought you the story that Israel could have possibly been a mediator in talks between Russia and the Ukrainians. However, Putin was not interested, and therefore the talks didn't happen. Israel is also deciding how we would possibly integrate and take in some 75,000 Ukrainians who are eligible to make aliyah, or to make immigration to Israel. This would entail the works of several ministries: the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs, the Ministry of Aliyah, and various others, as we try to help the Jewish community of the Ukraine and those eligible find safety in Israel. There are some rumors that Israel will be airlifting Jews out of the Ukraine, but this has not been confirmed. In other news regarding the Ukraine, American diplomats have evacuated their families. However, the European Union said that they will not be evacuating any of their diplomats for the time being. Israel is monitoring the situation very closely. We are concerned not only about the ongoing crisis, but the impact it could have on Iran nuclear talks. We also know that Russia and Syria have been doing air drills in the region close to us. Now, the World Zionist Organization and the Jewish Agency for Israel commissioned a study into anti-Semitism, and it has been found that last year, 2021, was the worst year for anti-Semitism in over a decade. Now, we do have an interview from I-24 on our Facebook page discussing this in further detail. If you want to have a look, it's on our site at Lottel's site. But some of the reasons we believe that there could be at play for the increase in anti-Semitism is the coronavirus pandemic. You know, throughout Jewish history, Jews have been blamed for pandemics or plagues. And in this case, we see strange strange phenomenon where we're not only blamed for the cause of the pandemic, but we're also blamed for creating the pandemic so that we could create the vaccines and profit financially. Yes, I'm not making this stuff up. We've also seen an increase in Holocaust trivialization, some aspects of the pandemic compared to the Holocaust, the issuing of green passports compared to having to wear a Jewish star. We've just heard Robert Kennedy Jr. from the United States of the Kennedy clan making those comparisons. We've seen people saying that it's just like Anne Frank to have to be in lockdown. Now, we just want to reiterate, Netflix and chilling is not the same as hiding out from the Gestapo who want to annihilate you. We just want to make that very, very clear. We also see an increase in anti-Semitism every time there is a flare-up or violence between Israel and the Palestinians. And last year, May, we saw Operation Shomer Chomot, or Guardians of the Wall, as it's known in English, where Israel had to take defensive action against terror entities in the Gaza Strip, firing rockets from Gaza into Israel towards Israeli civilians. And of course, this spills out into our diaspora communities and affects their safety in the countries where they are. We really hope that 2022 will see a significant downturn in anti-Semitism. However, there have been significant events over the last couple of weeks that makes this look very, very dubious. And on the subject of anti-Semitism, we conclude this broadcast by remembering Daniel Pearl. Daniel Pearl was a Wall Street Journal journalist who was in Pakistan, and he was kidnapped by terror groups. He was then tortured and executed 9 days later. Daniel Pearl's last words were, "I am Jewish." And at this time where we raise our voices to growing anti-Semitism, and as I just told you, we see astronomical amounts of anti-Semitism around the world, we say with pride, Daniel Pearl, we remember you. It has been 20 years since your brutal murder, and we echo your words with great pride. I am Jewish. So don't forget to check out our original content on our website at www.layoftheland.online. We have an incredible story, kind of a step back in time, with photojournalist Ilan Osendraver, who takes us on a tour through Soweto at the height of the state of emergency years in the 1980s. You're not going to want to miss this one. It is also up on our Facebook page at Lottle Site. If you haven't already joined our community, please give us a like or a follow. We're on YouTube. Our channel is The Israel Brief. And if you like our content, please consider subscribing by clicking on the red button below. We're on Twitter. Our site is, or our page is rather, at Lay of the Land 5. So simply click on the follow button and you can interact with us as often as you would like. So with the Monday edition of the Israel Brief, I'm Rolene Marks, and I'll bring you your top stories from Israel in this very place round about the same time tomorrow.